Hello, my name is Hannah, and today we're going to be talking about the rest of the books I read in August. This is part 2 of our experiment of splitting the month in half. So, I don't really have much for an intro other than there are 4 books here, one of which is probably going to take up most of the time, and 3 more that I liked. So, let's go. The first of the 4 books today I'm going to talk about is The View Was Exhausting by Michaela Clements and Anjuli Datta. I read the e-arc on NetGalley, but I do believe it came out at the beginning of July. So I was racing to beat the archive date because I was kind of pushing it on NetGalley. I picked it up literally because of a TikTok recommendation. I saw someone recommending it on TikTok specifically for fans of Taylor Jenkins Reid, who I have a 2/3 success rate with. But yeah, this was a fun little romance. I really enjoyed it. So basically, in this romance, our protagonists are Whitman Tagore, who is one of the biggest movie stars in Hollywood, and Leo Malinowski, who is kind of the playboy socialite heir to a hotel empire. And these two have been fake dating each other off and on for the last 7 years. And right when they're maybe beginning to catch feelings, there's an incident, everyone's mad, and the drama takes off from there. This was so fun and so sweet. It's kind of, when I do read romances, this is kind of exactly the tone I'm looking for. So yeah, lots of melodrama, lots of feelings, lots of dialogue. And then there was some really surprising depth at times. A major element of the story is that Whitman, who goes by Wynne, she is British Indian, and that is part of why she is so mindful of her image and her marketability as an actress. And Leo's kind of inability to really get that is, kind of a major plot point and a major sticking point in their relationship. So things like that, it was oh, there's depth here. So yeah, it was really fun, great characters, all the way down to the tertiary characters. There will be, a random person at a party who feels major and feels very real and fleshed out, which is just really fun, really adds to reading it. So yeah, it just came out at the beginning of July, so it is a very summery feeling book if you're someone who reads based on seasonal moods. All right. Oh God, now I have to talk about this. So this next book is a major part of why I split the month's books into, because I wanted to have plenty of time and plenty of room to talk about this book effectively. And then I've been kind of avoiding making this video because I'm avoiding talking about it. Okay, and that book is The People in the Trees by Hanya Yanagihara. I listened to the audiobook on Libby, and I thought this book was very impressive, so I did buy it. Okay, so we need to talk about this book. We gotta talk about the book. We gotta talk about it. Okay, so first I'll just give you the pitch, jacket copy. So in the 50s, there is a biologist named Norton Perina. He's selected to accompany an expedition led by an anthropologist named Paul Talent to a remote island in Micronesia called Ivu Ivu. The anthropologist is hoping to find this lost or untouched or whatever group of people who are indigenous to the island. And they come to find out while they're there, the people of Ivu Ivu tend to live almost impossibly long lives. Okay, with me so far? So the book really covers Perina's early life and career, and then really the meat of the book is that first expedition he goes on to the island. Then it kind of goes into his career and his personal life after that first expedition, which includes his eventual adoption of over 40 children from Ivu Ivu. All right, and we also find out, I don't think this is a spoiler because it's literally the first thing you read in the book. We find out that we in reading this book, we are reading the memoirs of Norton Perina that he is writing from prison, where he is being held charged with multiple counts of rape and sexual abuse and child abuse. So that's just what we're like starting with. So I picked it up because a couple years ago I read, like everyone else, I read A Little Life by Hanya Yanagihara. Complete sidebar. Look how nice these look together. And on the spine, these look really nice together on the shelf. Okay. Anyways, so I read that a couple years ago and I found it very impactful. And now her new book, To Paradise, is coming out in January. So I wanted to read this as well to get kind of like a fuller sense of her as a writer. So before I can really dig into the people in the trees, I want to talk about A Little Life. I promise it won't be awful. So this book is famous for being very upsetting. It's very brutal. It's very grim. Some say it borders on like torture porn, which isn't incorrect. The reading experience and like how miserable this book makes people has kind of become like sensationalized online. Like people will make entire reading vlogs that are just like them having like actual like psychological incidents while reading this book, which is really something. A lot of people come away from this book not really knowing if it was good or if they liked it. A lot of people hate it because they say it feels like they've been like manipulated, like they hate it basically. And I kind of felt much the same way. That was like, I never want to read this again, but it's like, this really gets a rise out of people. And I wanted to kind of, going into People in the Trees, I wanted to kind of look at, is it because of the content alone, or is it the content and the writing that really gets under people's skin? Are you following me? So I'm of the school of thought that it's kind of both. If it were just like really gruesome, really dark content, I think it would be really like disturbing and upsetting, but I don't think it would get to people quite as bad as it does. And I don't think it would affect readers so deeply if there wasn't also like very emotional, very empathetic writing. So it gets to us, the readers, so bad because so much of it is Jude's experience. So we see the narrative through his reactions to things, his pain, his internal monologue, his opinions on himself and the people around him. We know that he's suspicious of people, so that kind of puts us on edge, and it really just puts us in Jude's mind, which is not a fun place to be. So we so directly read his rationale for everything. And it's because Jude is such a sympathetic character. So much happens to him that no human being should ever experience. But we are with him in the aftermath of all of that. I think that is how this gets to people so bad. Now, bearing that in mind, in the People in the Trees, it's kind of the same idea at play. It's not dissimilar. We are being put directly in the mind and the point of view of our protagonist. We're reading his memoirs with minimal editing. There's footnotes that have been done by a colleague of his. But instead of being put into the point of view of a character like Jude, who we know to be very kind and who is a victim of so many things, we are put in the mind of Dr. Perina, who is a real son of a bitch. So we, the reader, are there with Perina, blow by blow, every step of the way, as he is just really, really reprehensible. So he thinks these horrible things about his colleagues who are different ethnicities, who are women, who he just does not think highly of. And also, he's extremely unethical in his academic work, and we read his rationalizing of it. And then as he commits these various abuses throughout his life, we have to basically be in his head with him as he like justifies everything he does to himself. So is it good? So in the way that this book is very affecting and very much gets under your skin, and really you are experiencing this book. There's no like casual reading experience. So we're forced to feel as the reader almost complicit in everything he does, which is a very unpleasant feeling, but it's a very unique reading experience. The closest parallel I can think of in my mind is like Lolita, with that kind of like unreliable narrator, because he's not even that unreliable, because he's not like putting roses on what he does. He just doesn't think that what he does is bad. So overall, this book is so well done, and it is, I'm literally at a loss for words. It is not pleasant, but it's very visceral and very horrific, and the writing is really, really good. As with A Little Life, definitely check content warnings. If you read either of these, check content warnings. Even if you do not think you are someone who typically needs content warnings, check them anyways. Because, I mean, these are pretty rocky rides, you know? And don't be afraid to bail on a book. And another soapbox. I had a soapbox a couple videos ago. It's time for another soapbox. Don't be afraid to bail on a book. I see all the time people reading, especially A Little Life. I see people reading it because they want to be part of the discourse and part of the conversation, and they feel like they have to have an opinion on this book. And everyone's like, literally like taking psychic damage. I'm like, you don't have to do this just to be part of discourse about one book. Do you know how many books there are? It's not worth it. And I don't think The People in the Trees is as bad as A Little Life, but when it does get bad, it is very bad. It is no bones about it. It's very explicit. It's very not pleasant to read, especially the audiobook. I was like commuting to work at 7 a.m. All right, I think I successfully spent 10 minutes talking about that book, and I don't think I really said that much. That's all. Okay, I have 2 more books. The next one I read was Something is Killing the Children by James Tinian IV, illustrated by Werther Deladera? I have no clue if that's right. Okay, so I read it's a graphic novel, and I read it as an ebook on Hoopla. I would not recommend reading a graphic novel on your phone. So I did my experiment last month reading poetry on my phone, and it was a great experience. There was like a sizing guide to make sure I was getting the best experience. This was not that. This was literally like a PDF of the page. And I got to like zoom in on every single cell, and it made for just a very challenging reading experience. Luckily it wasn't too long, and I have pretty good eyes, but I feel like they're worse now. I picked this up because Trevor Macy and Mike Flanagan, who collaborated on Dr. Sleep, are developing this into a show for Netflix. So basically the pitch is children keep disappearing or dying in the woods that's kind of on the edge of this small town. And one day there's this kind of mysterious woman shows up on the bus, and she's claiming to be a monster hunter, and she wants to hunt the monster that's in the woods and is killing the children. So I am fairly new to graphic novels. We're trying new things. I've read Mouse and like one Captain America compendium like 10 years ago. But that's about it. My biggest gripe about this book is probably just something that is a problem in graphic novels, or just a property of graphic novel reading, is that the way the volume is split, we have the first 5 issues, I guess, of the series are bound up together, and it definitely just feels like the beginning of a series. I felt like I would probably have to read more to really actually get into the story. It all just felt like prologue. So by the end of this book that I've spent, 2 days reading, I've reached the end of the book, and we're kind of like just arriving at the beginning of this story, which I know it's part of a series, but it was just odd to me that that's where the split was. But again, maybe this is just a thing in graphic novels that I would just have to get used to. So yeah, I loved the art. It was really gnarly and kind of creepy at times, which I really wanted out of like a scary graphic novel. And a really cool concept, and it was just really fun to read. But I don't know that it's something I'm necessarily interested in reading more of. So maybe as the show like materializes, and if that comes out and I find that really compelling, I might pick up the second bind up, but we shall see. And I definitely won't read the ebook because that was really difficult. Okay, and the last book I read in August was a very fun one, and that was This Was Hollywood, Forgotten Stars and Stories by Carla Valderrama. So I read it physically, and actually, a funny thing, my mom got me this for Christmas, and I got my mom this for Christmas, so we literally bought each other copies of the same book. How cute is that? I picked this up because This Was Hollywood is one of my favorite Instagram accounts, and when she announced that she was coming out with a book in collaboration with TCM, I thought that was super fun. And yeah, I couldn't wait to read this. So basically, it's kind of what it says in the subtitle. They are brief, entertaining accounts of stories from old Hollywood that kind of aren't talked about as much. So either like kind of stars that have kind of been forgotten by time, or less known stories of very famous figures. And yeah, this was just a really fun in-between read. I mean, you can read a couple pages at a time and put it down, which is kind of what I did because it's not very mobile. I couldn't like take it in my purse places. And this one, Ruthie took her pound of flesh again. I still haven't learned my lesson, I guess. This is like the 4th or 5th book she's chewed on the front corner of. So that's great. But yeah, this was really well researched and really fun. Very well put together. I loved all the photos. It was really, really fun. I don't know how else to describe it. And I particularly love kind of the tone she takes, which is very like matter of fact. So obviously she's very knowledgeable about old Hollywood. It's something that she is passionate about and interested in, but she doesn't like sugarcoat things. She's very matter of fact about how awful old Hollywood was for so many people for such a long time. So it comes out neither too rose-tinted nor too grim. So yeah, my favorite passages were the ones about Lois Weber, who I had no clue about, and now I want to know everything about, and Rita Hayworth, who I kind of knew. She kind of had like a stage name and an interesting backstory, but yeah, absolutely those. Oh, and the very last one about Paul Newman's first movie was a huge, huge flop and was apparently awful, and now I desperately want to watch it. So that was a really fun note to end the month on. And like I said, I just kind of like read this a couple chapters at a time in between other books. So this was an absolute dream to read. So that's all. August books finally done. Now here, like halfway through September. Oops. September is probably a light month for me content-wise because I just have a very busy month. So I may not be back until my September wrap-up. So, yep, that is all from me. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!